But we're going to start things out as Marc Spears joins us. You can check him out from the Undefeated. He's got a great story on Ricky Berry. Marc joining us here. Good morning, Marc. How are you?
Man, I'm living the dream, brother.
Dude, a picture of the phone?
That's pretty good.
In 20 years, I've never had that happen. It was very creative.
What's that?
The picture, I've never had a guest send me, and like I said, I want to give away all your info here, but I've never had a guest send me a picture of the hotel phone as the contact.
Yeah.
We tried our best, Marc.
You know what? Making it easy for everybody involved, man.
Well, we're glad
you
you're
got
with
the information, and I don't have to type it in. It's actually pretty brilliant.
I want to start. We're laughing here, and before Jason and I actually talked about this off the air because we want to talk about a couple things with you, and mainly we want to talk about your piece with on Ricky Berry, which I is one of the, quite frankly, it's one of the best pieces I've read in a very, very, very long time on anything, and you got the heartstrings of a lot of us, obviously, here in Sacramento. However, I don't want to transition from what's going to be a fairly deep conversation to run-of-the-mill NBA stuff. So let's switch back. I want to ask you about another guy that still is very polarizing in Sacramento, and that's DeMarcus Cousins. You've covered him very closely for a long, long time. You know his camp. And they're absolutely devastated, obviously for good reason. Stupid question, Marc, but what do you do now? Where does he go? What's next for DeMarcus?
You know what? One of the things that I try to do in life, man, is when something happens bad, give yourself 24 hours to be mad about it, and then say, okay, what do I do now? You know, because nothing can change. What happened, and you have to put life in perspective. You're 29 years old in 3 days now.
Yep.
You made $80 million in your life. You're getting $3 million to rehab this year. There are a lot of people that we know in this world, a lot of people we see intense, a lot of people that we know are hungry, that have a lot bigger problems. So it's a horrible thing. It's a horrible injury, and his last year and a half it has been terrible. His grandmother passed away in December, and you know, you had basically four major injuries, including what happened in the playoffs finals. But he's still young, and he's going to have the best of care, and he could still recover. And yes, millions and millions of dollars have been lost, but there's millions of people that would take his problem. So I think he just needs to turn to the positive side now, shake it off, and fight to get back in the NBA.
Yeah, and Marc, I don't doubt, when the 24 hours clears for him, he'll then shift to mode of, okay, here it goes, another major challenge. I'll work, I'll be back, I'll try to be better than ever. Where will the rest of the league, though, put DeMarcus after, two significant injuries, that weird quad one in between? What do you think the league will think about his value when he's ready to come back?
Well, I mean, he's going to have to probably go for a minimum deal. And with his skill set and the risk-reward of getting a player at a minimum deal, I think he'll be fine. Is he scratching 10 years?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so once he gets to the 10-year part, the half of his salary is paid for by the league. So it makes him even a cheaper risk. So at a minimum contract with him coming back with his talent and the possible all-star talent you could get for him, I think he'll have an opportunity. It just won't be at the price that he dreamed of.
Well, and last thing too, I like your perspective on it, and we know that DeMarcus is not a dude who's going to feel sorry for himself for too long, but just the juxtaposition of him being in the Bahamas with his friends John Wall and Eric Bledsoe and a bunch of family members, bachelor party. We saw the video of him playing basketball with some of the kids out there, and all thoughts were, or all noise was, he'd lost weight, he was healthy, he was ready for a breakout year. So he's still got a wedding, he's still got the important stuff behind him, and I like what you said, Marc, and we kind of talked about that before you came on. There's a perspective. I feel terrible for him, yet in perspective, it's still very good to be DeMarcus Cousins.
Yeah. he has fight in him.
Yep.
And I think Draymond Green told me best yesterday. He made it out of Mobile, man. And this dude could make it out of Mobile and become a guy that's made $80 million. He could beat this. And I think Draymond is right.
Well, Mark, we will transition then to your incredible piece on the Undefeated. Kings fans, or anybody, actually, it's just a great, the way you weave the story to how much Ricky Berry meant to you. You bring in Henry Turner, Bobby Gerald, close friends of Ricky Berry. Just incredible. 30 years ago, took his own life. Dave brought this up yesterday. We just can't know. We can't know what demons are out there on anybody. It's just amazing that this happened to him, and seemingly, again, it looks like a guy that had everything. What would you say about Ricky Berry for the short life, unfortunately, that he did have?
You know, it's amazing to me how somebody could make an impact 3 decades after a life that lasted 24 years. But I idolized Ricky Berry. Growing up in San Jose, went to San Jose State basketball camp, you know, and one of my friends, who went to the camp with me, he sent me a picture of him crying when he read the story. He was a star that we could touch. You know, like San Jose doesn't produce, it's not like New York City or it produces all these stars. It's, you know, kind of like Sacramento where there are stars that come out of there, but it's not everybody. But I could touch him. I got to know him. I go to San Jose State basketball games and he'd shower and change and come out and see me and make time for me. I wore 34 because of him. I wanted to be him. And to have seen somebody basically in college be able to touch them and then them become an NBA star, I mean, you inevitably become a huge fan of his. Like I said, I wore 34 because of him in high school and college. And so for me to be a senior in high school, and I'll never forget this, that Monty Buckley, he was at Christian Brothers, got to know Ricky during his short time in Sacramento, and they pulled us out of a elite high school basketball camp. And the thing is, we chuckle a little bit about it because we were staying in the same dorms, and we thought, what do? We didn't sneak out. We didn't go chase no girls. Why are they pulling us out of camp? And so we were trying to figure out while we were walking next to each other what we did wrong, and they brought us in a room and gave us this haunting news that, you know, the guy we idolized passed away. And I still remember being 17-year-old sitting in that room and how much it crushed us and how my mom tried to get me to change my number. But I also remember the good things. He was an amazing person, funny, hard worker. He was nice, man. And I think the Kings fans are always going to say what if with him because he was all-star nice. I mean, Kenny Smith said it best. He was Reggie Miller with handles. And he had to drive to be better than Reggie Miller.
Marc Spears joining us. Mark, I want to thank you for writing that. I think writers are at their best, in my opinion, when they're drivers, when they're methods of transportation. When you read something and it takes you to a place, you time travel, if you will. And when I read your piece, I became a little kid again. You mentioned Monty Buckley, who a lot of people don't remember how amazing Monty was at Christian Brothers. And I told Jason yesterday, there were 3 seminal deaths in my life as a fan of sports. It was Len Bias, Hank Gathers, and Ricky Berry, and all died for very separate reasons.
Yeah.
And all 3 taught.
But you got to touch Ricky Berry, so yep. I assume you didn't meet the other two people.
That's the difference. And Ricky, forget about the basketball stuff, although it's tough. The Kings fans have gone through difficult times before. Bobby Hurley comes to mind. But what you said about Ricky, I didn't think this was possible, but I found out so much more about his passing, the reasons around it, and the reactions. I deal with Henry Turner and Jerry Reynolds, as Jason does almost every day during the season. Some of the things they said, I've never asked them those questions. You asked them. So you touched on a very vulnerable part of our history. And at the same time, I think the best thing that article might have done, the amount of people I saw on Twitter, Mark, and you saw these too, that didn't know. They had no idea, or they hadn't heard of it, or they weren't here. I think that helped create that or extend that legacy for Ricky that he so much deserved.
Yeah, it was perhaps one of the toughest stories I ever had to write. I'm still a little nervous about it because I have so much respect for the Berry family. To your point, like when I think of Coach Berry, it takes me back to the 7th grade camper at San Jose State, or when I was covering the Denver Nuggets and Coach Berry would be at the Nuggets game scouting, and he would be in the media room for pregame meal, and I would sit next to him. I never at once asked about Ricky.
Sure.
But God knows I wanted to. I wanted to talk to Coach about him, man. Ed Pickney told me the same thing. Kenny Smith told me the same thing. But as someone close to Coach Berry said, that was one subject that was off topics. There are a lot of Kings players that never had closure with this. The Berry family made the decision to have a private funeral in Lansing, Michigan, and the Kings, and please tell me I'm wrong, but they basically, as Henry said, it was like a little illegitimate child that they didn't want to mention.
Yep.
I don't think there wasn't any black cloth on the jersey. There wasn't any moment of silence. There wasn't any mention. It was taboo. I have told some Kings people, and you guys could probably, you guys to me are Kings media royalty, so please tell me if you think this is a bad idea. But under the guise of all the, mental illness and mental awareness that we have now, perhaps there should be a Ricky Berry Day this season.
Agreed.
With the Kings and moving forward, where you celebrate him as a person, you celebrate what he did, and then you also maybe have mention of suicide prevention or going to get mental health when needed. I wish Ricky had then what is available now. The people close to him definitely said that they didn't think he had any mental illness, and I don't think so either, but he was very depressed. When you take your life, there's definitely a depression that takes you there. I had a close friend, and I can't get into too detail, that did that last year, and myself and my wife are still really dealing with it. So it also hits, close to home that way too. So I do think that Vivek has done an amazing job of tackling social issues, whether it's Stephon Clark or diversity, and I think they could do an amazing thing to help with this that could potentially change lives or make somebody make a call that they perhaps weren't.
Yeah, I think that's a fantastic idea, Mark, and I think we all relate to this in whatever way it hits you, and it hit you differently because you're personally connected to Ricky Berry. Dave, the same, where he grew up here, followed him, knew him. I arrived in Sacramento shortly after that, so I knew of him, knew what happened, but didn't really know it until I got here. And then when I get here, a story like that can be cathartic when you're talked about it. Let's get it out. Let's talk. Let's everybody deal with it. But like you said, Mark, it was taboo. Like nobody. To me, it was, I'm arriving in on this story, and why is nobody talking about it? And so I think that kind of awareness idea is a fantastic one.
Yeah. So, and I'm glad you guys are talking about it. I think at large the Sacramento media probably missed on it. Maybe I'm wrong, but that I'm not going to beat them up for it because I'm so close to it. I remember him all the time. So it's a different story to me. It's a personal story to me. I hope that if the Berry family read it, they're not angry with me. There's some things that I revealed. I mentioned infidelity. There's a lot that I know. Like, how you open up a box and find things as a reporter that now I got to live with. Yep. And that aren't in the story, and maybe me and Dave privately, we could have more of a conversation one day about it. But this was hard, man. This is very, very hard to write. But because of you guys want to talk about it and what I've seen on social media talking about it, for the people listening that haven't read it, I think you should, just because this was an amazing person that walked away from more amazing things that would have made just Kings fans and people happy for years. A different man who, like, he was working on an auto dealership on the side. Like, who does that?
Yeah.
Because he wanted to buy an auto dealership.
Yep.
Actually, in a suicide letter, he wrote, "Stop black on black crime."
Yep.
So even though what he did was violent, he had a mentality of that, black on black crime was a horrible thing. And so that's the things that, like, man, he mentally was ahead of his time, and I wish we could have saw what the end result would have been.
Oh, and Mark, we're almost out of time. It seems like we've been talking for 2 minutes, but I started off by thanking you, and part of the reason why I think it's important to thank you for writing this is the balls it took to write it, because I think I know why so many missed on it, and I feel it's very difficult to verbalize, but I'll do my best. I think especially back when it happened, I think people watch sports because they want to watch invincible people. I think they're voyeurs who want to get away from their husbands and wives and mortgage payments. They want to watch these invincible gladiators that can't be defeated at anything, compete at the highest level. And I think when you see something like Ricky Berry, I think people don't want to talk about it, because if Ricky Berry took his own life, then what does that say for me? And I think it messes with people's masculinity. I think it messes with their mortality, and I think it's easier to ignore it or shove that grief down. I think we're in a different society now. I think we're in a different way now, and I think bringing that long unhealed wound back to the surface may finally heal, or at least let it scab over. I love your idea, and I'm happy to help you push for it.
Yeah, no, I mean, look, hopefully the Kings are listening. They are. I know the winds haven't shown for it, and I hope they do, because I expect them to do something with Ricky. I know what they do on diversity. I know what they do on, police brutality, and how they're not scared to put lights to things. And, Vivek is a person that I'm growing to admire more and more because of his morals and the way he does things. So I would be surprised if they didn't, and I know that they'll do it the right way, and perhaps there is some good that could come from something so dark. And in today's world, the Kings could certainly, as they continue to try to change things on the court, I think off the court they're doing amazing things, and this could be the next step.
The Drive.